you're struggling with your relationship with food, or you're on your journey of healing your relationship with food, and you're starting to wonder what normal eating is because you haven't had normal eating habits and thoughts around food for a long time. Hi, I'm Rachel. This is the I'm Bringing Healthy Back podcast, and I've been there. I struggled with disordered eating for over a decade, and I want to encourage you and give you some insight into what normal eating looks like for me now. And you may not eat the same foods that I eat, but there are principles that you can still take away. So today I'm going to take you through a grocery haul and then give you some meal ideas, some snack ideas that give you a look into what normal eating can look like. So let's start with the grocery haul. I picked up some groceries from Aldi. To start, I have some bell peppers, some lunch meat, some tortillas, bread, rice, more fruit, some cheese, some mushrooms, tomatoes, chicken thighs, salsa, bananas, some raspberry jam, frozen ground turkey, eggs, canned green beans, ranch, some pasta, and some sugar snap peas. So let me take you through what I plan to do with all of this. So I try to do some meal planning for the week because one thing I noticed is if I don't have meals and snacks prepared and ready to eat in the house, I really struggle with just munching on this, munching on that. I'm not getting the nutrients my body needs. I'm having cravings for things that aren't the most nutritious because I want to eat right now. And that's something that I really, really struggled with. It's not as difficult anymore, but when I was in the depths of my very restrictive phase or my binge eating phase, if food wasn't ready and I was hungry, that's all that mattered, was getting some food. And usually the stuff that was readily available wasn't a nice, nutritious, full meal or snack. So the meals this week, what I'm making tonight is a pork tenderloin with crispy potatoes and probably some roasted broccoli. That's not in this grocery haul, but as I'm talking about meal planning for the week, that's tonight, and I may or may not have leftovers. So I also plan to be making some chicken ranch enchiladas / baked tacos. And so I have chicken thighs, I have cheese. The sauce that goes in the enchiladas is a mixture of salsa and ranch, and I use chicken thighs because I like the flavor. They're a little more cost effective. They do have a higher fat and calorie content, but I genuinely prefer the flavor. So there's nothing wrong with eating something because you have a preference for that flavor. I will also be using white tortillas. I have white jasmine rice. Part of that is I don't think Aldi sells whole wheat tortillas. Aldi does sell some brown rices, but I like the jasmine rice, so that's just what I buy. And I used to struggle with eating non-whole wheat carbs because I felt that it's empty calories, but that's not necessarily the case. Yes, the white rice and the white tortillas may not have a lot of nutrients to them, but they're going to be a vessel or a foundation for nutrients that I'm going to put in the tortillas or on top of the rice. And that's okay. You find a balance. What works for you? What can you get at your store? What works for your budget? And then balance it with more nutrient ingredients. So that's one dinner idea. And I will take leftovers for lunch. Then for another lunch idea for the weekend or during the week, I don't know where I got away from the idea that sandwiches were an option for lunch, but sandwiches, you can pack so much into a sandwich. And I do turkey and hard salami because even though hard salami has higher fat content, higher calorie content than the turkey, it has a really good flavor to me. I really like the flavor. And then I just like to bulk it up with the turkey, and Aldi's turkey breast, I really like the flavor of. It has a little bit of sweetness to it. And then the outside has the flavor on it. It's just really good. So genuinely the two together, I like the balance because while I would enjoy a full hard salami sandwich, it's not always just eating things because you like the flavor of them. There is a balance of how can I steward my body well? And you don't have to be at that point now, but there is something about, I do need to eat vegetables. Even though it doesn't taste like a chocolate chip cookie, there's still value in putting nutrient-dense foods in my body. I feel better, my body's happier, and sometimes that's the reality. Sometimes we do eat foods because they benefit our body. That is not inherently a disordered eating habit. So me balancing the hard salami, the flavor, with the leaner turkey in a sandwich, there's nothing wrong with that. And then I'll put some tomato on that sandwich. And I forgot about it until I was driving to the grocery store. I did a grocery pickup. Something that's really good on sandwiches, I usually do mayo and yellow mustard on my sandwich. But something that's really good is hummus. I do not love all hummuses. I do not believe they're created equally. Some taste better than others. Store-bought usually is not my preference, but a store-bought hummus, slather that on your bread for your sandwich. It just brings so much flavor to your sandwich. So would recommend. Then I like to have fruit in the house. So I got grapes. They were on sale at a reasonable price. I try to pick a fruit, one or two fruits per week. I tend to go with the ones that are a little more cost effective. If something's on sale, I'll grab that. But I have grapes, and I love to have fruit and cheese or veggies and cheese as snacks in between meals, because I get the satisfaction of the fat and the protein from the cheese, and then the freshness of a fruit or a veggie. And especially in the morning, I like to have a fruit because I'm craving something a little sweet. Your brain runs on glucose. So I'm pretty sure that's the sugar that your brain runs on. So I always like to have fruit in the house. And fruit, when you're craving something sweet, like a sweet treat, I know, and you probably think that if I could just stop eating sugar and have fruit instead, sometimes the reality is we just want that cookie. And there's nothing inherently wrong with having that cookie. Now, you could be someone who is super, super intentional about what they put in their body, and they're like, I don't want processed white sugar. And that's fine, and that may be someplace you get one day. But if you're struggling with your overall relationship with food, now is not the time necessarily to be like, I'm cutting out white sugar. Because in my opinion, when you're healing your relationship with food, no food should be completely cut out, because it's the food rules where we start to feel restricted, and we are the ones restricting ourselves. And so when we open ourselves back up to that food, sometimes that's when a binge can happen, because we know in the back of our mind that we're going to cut this food out again because we can't be trusted around it. So fruit is a great way to kind of quench that desire for something sweet. But this is just a little aside to say you're still allowed to eat the cookies. Still allowed to eat the cookies, because the way I think of it, think of yourself in the future. You have healed your relationship with food. What are you allowed to eat? I hope the answer is anything. You're allowed to eat anything without guilt, without anxiety. So just keep that in mind. Future healthy you want to be able to eat XYZ without fear. So if you want to eat it in the future without fear, I do not at all recommend cutting it out completely from your diet now. That being said, I have the bell peppers, and I plan to slice those up and take some of those to work as a snack with some cheese sticks. And then I have some penne pasta, and I have 2 things of chicken. So my other container of chicken is for creamy Tuscan chicken pasta. And I think I've mentioned that before in this normal eating series. There's sun-dried tomatoes, there's spinach, there's garlic, there's a lot of cream, but it is so delicious. And it's white pasta, it's chicken thighs. It's not a low-calorie meal, but it is so satisfying. And I'm not eating it every single meal, every single day. And I'm saying that to tell you that you're allowed to eat the heavier, richer foods. It's okay to include those in your diet. And you know that that's not what you're eating every single day. You're allowed to have lighter meals and heavier meals, lighter snacks, heavier snacks. And that's normal. There's no need to cut rich, decadent foods out completely. And it's one of my favorite dishes. It's super flavorful. I plan to be hosting a couple of people in the near future, and this is what I want to make for them, because it's just delicious. And I know that I have very strong hopes that they will like it. So something to look forward to as you heal your relationship with food is actually looking forward to these decadent, rich things that you may have excluded from your diet before. And then I did pick up some raspberry preserves. I like to mix raspberry and peanut butter, or raspberry jam and almond butter into my oatmeal. It gives me a little bit of peanut butter and jelly vibe. And that sometimes is a snack or it's breakfast. And again, yes, I could use actual raspberries instead of raspberry jam. Actual raspberries would have less sugar because there's no added sugar, but the raspberry jam, it's more cost effective for me. It's easy. And sometimes we don't always nutrient max a meal. Sometimes it's just a convenient meal, or sometimes it's an affordable meal. And so that's just to say there's nothing wrong with sometimes we pick things out of convenience or cost effectiveness because that's what is working for you at the time. And achieving food freedom, and as you heal your relationship with food, that is a freedom that you will come to appreciate, because sometimes you just need something that's cheap or fast and easy. And then my final thing is I got another dozen eggs. I have some pork sausage in the fridge. I hope it's still good. I had used half of the tube. I put it in the freezer. I thawed it out this week. I don't know how long it lasts. Anywho, my plan is to make some little egg bites. Oh shoot. I hope I have enough green onion. I was hoping to make some little egg bites because those are they're cost effective. They're easy to make. They're easy to pull out for a quick breakfast or a snack. So I have extra eggs. And then my last meal for the week that I often take what I make for dinner for lunch to work is hamburger pie. Now this one is a very cost-effective meal and it's super delicious and it's super easy. I have some potatoes. You make mashed potatoes for the topping. It's very similar to a shepherd's pie, but I grew up having ground turkey in it and it's delicious. Hear me out. Seems super simple, doesn't seem that glamorous, but it's really delicious. First of all, potatoes. Potatoes had a bad name for a while. It's like you must eat sweet potatoes, but regular potatoes are just fine. Really, they are. They're just fine. Even if you peel them just to mash them, and I plan to mash them, and I plan to put cream in them, and I plan to put butter in them, and they're going to be delicious. And again, it's all about the balance. I have this rich, hearty mashed potato, but then I have lean ground turkey. I have green beans. I'm going to dice up my mushrooms really small just to bulk it up. So we're going to bulk it up. You're hardly going to be able to tell the difference between the tiny little pieces of mushroom and the browned, crumbled ground turkey. And so you're going to get extra nutrients and extra bulk in your hamburger pie, and then the green beans. And then I'll make a little gravy, a little slurry, and thicken up the juices from everything cooking. There's going to be lots of onion in there, so lots of delicious flavor. And then once you get your delicious, I season it with onion soup mix. That's where the delicious flavor comes from. So once you have your filling all cooked, then you put all of your delicious mashed potatoes on top and you eat that, and it's just so scrumptious. So I hope you can sense some of the excitement I have about these delicious foods, because you should be allowed to get excited about food. I think it's easy to get caught up in high calorie is bad. You want the most nutrition, which nutrition is important. Having a knowledge of calorie density is important, but finding balance in all of that, finding foods that work for you and your family on a budget that works for you and your family, in the time that you have to cook and prep for your family, or if it's just you, or if it's just you and whomever, this is what normal eating can look like. If you've made it this far, thank you so much for watching. Hit subscribe or follow wherever you're watching or listening, and leave me a comment down below. What is one thing that you're looking forward to as you heal your relationship with food and strive to achieve food freedom? Thank you guys so much for being here today, and I'll see you guys in the next video.